Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Man in America. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse. I'm sure that you've been watching closely what's happening on our southern border, and if you're anything like me, you're probably really concerned about that. Now, I've had a lot of guests on to talk about this topic, including recently Ann Vandersteel, that just got back from a long tour down there with Michael Yon as part of Operation Burning Edge. But my guest today that's joining, I think, brings a perspective and data that I haven't come across yet, and it's extremely important. So his name is JJ Carroll, and he was a border agent, and he rose up to being, I think, a deputy agent for about 24 years. And what he's seen under Joe Biden as opposed to Trump in his previous career is absolutely shocking. Now, this interview, I will ask you ahead of time, this is an interview that's very, very important to share with people, because what JJ is going to highlight is an extremely real threat to us here on American soil. And look, I don't want to be the fearmonger. I don't want to be the person saying, look, bad things are going to happen, but I also don't want to be burying my head in the sand. I want to be looking at these signs. I want to be interviewing experts like the person, JJ today, and having them give us their opinion on what they're seeing unfold. Because I'll give you one quick fact. Okay, so what we're going to be talking about something here called a SIA, a special interest alien, which really what it means is it's a person that's coming into our country as an alien that is from either a terrorist country or a terrorist-backed organization, right? So they're flagged. What JJ has told us, what he'll get into in the interview, is in his entire career, he could count on two hands the amount of SIAs that he came across, and then they were almost always sent back deported. If he would have released one, as you'll hear him talk about, he would have had his badge taken away, had his gun taken away. What he's telling us, and this is why this interview is so critical, is that under Biden, there's hundreds of thousands of these SIAs being allowed to walk right into our country, some of them known terrorists. And after what we just witnessed with Israel, where known terrorists walked, basically, or paraglided into a country, and you could argue and say that they were allowed to from the government, just like our government's allowing them to walk in. We saw what happens when terror cells come in and create disruptions and start slaughtering the citizens. And it's JJ's opinion and his grave concern that that is what is next here in America. That will be the next stage of things, especially as we're heading into 2024. So I'll tell you again, if there's one video that you will share with people, this is it, because we have to have more Americans understand the real threat that we're facing here. There's too many of us that are just living in this bubble of normalcy bias and believing that because America has always been so great that we're too great to fall, that an enemy would never attack us on American soil. Well, the information that he provides, especially as he gets into the kinds of people that he's seeing coming across the border, is very shocking. Now, I'll tell you, though, that it's really important that we're able to process this information and not live in a state of fear. And that's the challenge. The challenge is looking at the darkness, yet not being afraid of the darkness. So just keep that in mind. It's important to get this information, but we have to be able to not live in a state of fear, which I think that for me, that fear comes from faith ultimately, but also it comes from being prepared. And this is exactly what I've talked about, folks, and the importance of being prepared. So folks, please enjoy this interview with JJ Carroll. So JJ, thank you so much for being here today. It's an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk about this subject because I think it is the greatest threat to our republic. Not the economy, not Russia, not China, not the war in Israel. I believe it's the open borders, unfettered illegal immigration to our nation.
I honestly, in terms of the immediate threats, I absolutely agree with you. And so I just a little background of how you ended up on my show today. So I heard your interview with Naomi Wolf recently, and then listened to some of your interviews with Brian O'Shea, who's also been a guest here as well. And with Naomi's interview in particular, we looked at just the data of the SIAs, which I'll let you explain what that means. It was alarming. And I've had a lot of guests on talking about the southern border and talking about the CCP's roles with the cartels and everything going on there. But something about your interview was just shocking to me. So I know that you were border agent, a senior border agent. You spent 24 years down there, right? Do you want to give us just a quick background of your experience, and then we'll dive
Sure.
into just more of the immediate threats?
Sure. I joined the Border Patrol in 1997, and it was one of the most proudest moments of my life. I went down. My first duty station was Imperial Beach Station, which is the southwesternmost point of the United States, 6 miles to the San Ysidro Port of Entry. And it's at that time, it was the most violent area of the border. I cut my teeth and made all my reputation down there for 10 years. And I picked up my supervisor promotion while in Imperial Beach. I ran task force units like the ATV unit. It was myself and 10 guys that I ran. We were the fast mobile response team. We were assaulted every day, fist fights, rocks, bricks thrown at us, shot at, barbed wire, concertina wire, and regular wire pulled across the border fence to both border fences, try to decapitate us as we rode our scoots, 50 miles an hour, chasing people. It was the most exhilarating time of my life. I loved every second. As frustrating as insane and violent and injury prone everybody got, it was. I would do it all over again. I took a promotion up to Southern California in Orange County, and I created a very large task force called Coastal Border Enforcement Team, CBET for short, and we chased all the open bow pangas that were bringing in anywhere from 20 to 35 individuals on a human smuggling load. Then ultimately, El Chapo Guzman, the notorious narco king, took over all of the traffic routes and started bringing in narcotics. So we came into a narcotic maritime team where we weren't out on the water, we were on the shoreline, and we would, through surveillance and through techniques, we were able to determine where pangas would land, the boats, and we would arrest that. And I take great pride in that because one of my agents, all the boats that we arrested, thousands and thousands of pounds of narcotics, thousands of people we arrested, felony arrest. It was all El Chapo Guzman Sinaloa cartel loads, and one of my guys actually went and testified against El Chapo Guzman and helped secure a conviction. So it's a huge deal for me. It's about 50 to 60 guys on my unit. It was challenging and awesome. And then I took promotions into the interior, 45 miles north from the border, and picked up my last promotion was deputy patrol agent in charge of a station in San Diego sector. And why I believe that I believe I'm an expert on this because I lived it. I'm not an academic guy in the sense of I'm just going to talk to you about theoreticals. I'm going to talk to you about what it's like to be down the border, how the policies are being implemented on the border, and then I'm going to give you a 30,000-foot view of where I was as a senior leader and explaining what these policies and laws really how they should be enforced, and how Mayorkas, through Biden, have bastardized everything in immigration law. Nothing that I saw, I've only been out of Border Patrol 2 years. Everything that I did in my career, they're doing 180 degrees difference. It's unlawful, it's unconstitutional. And we have a giant problem within the Border Patrol because a lot of Border Patrol agents believe that they're betraying their oath that they gave. So that's a little bit about where I came from and how I see things through my perspective and my lens.
Which is really helpful, especially in framing this discussion. And I'll just add a little bit of frame myself is that this discussion obviously is we're going to be touching on the border, but it's not just a general thing of okay, look, this is how many people are coming across the border. This is the bigger picture and how it's going to affect the demographics of America in 10 years. This is a much more pointed discussion saying, okay, look what just happened in Israel when terror cells were allowed or came across, that's a different discussion, the border into Israel and attacked civilians, and how what you're seeing being set up in America, which you believe is the next step, is something like that on a much larger scale. And so I want to get into how this obviously hear you speak about that, but then let's start with the SIAs, right? Special interest aliens, and the numbers and data on that. And so if you can explain what an SIA is,
Okay.
to me, that was the main one of the main points in your interview with Naomi that made this giant red alarm start going off in my mind, is hearing about the SIA. So I'll hand it back over to you.
Okay. So SIA stand for Special Interest Aliens. Okay. And you're going to hear DHS really kind to soft pedal this. Okay. But what an SIA, Special Interest Alien, is somebody that's coming from a terrorist nation or traveling through a terrorist nation, that nation is a terrorist nation or houses terrorist organizations. And that individual could be just from a terrorist nation, or they could be a very low level part of a terrorist organization or top level. Just 2-3 weeks ago, my guy sent me a picture of a guy from my old station that they arrested. He was the head ISIS recruiter. The head ISIS recruiter, let me say that again, that crossed 3 weeks ago and just sat down in a field in San Diego and just said, come arrest me. Okay. So when you talk about special interest aliens, I love this quote. I don't have it up and I apologize, but I'll paraphrase very close to it. Mark Morgan, under President Trump, was the Commissioner of Customs and Border Protection. He was a former high-level FBI agent, and then came over and ran ICE and the Border Patrol. And they quoted him as saying, they asked him, well, DHS is saying, well, special interest aliens aren't bad. This is the guy that ran it, right? This is the guy that was in the weeds, a higher level guy. And he said, it's important because they're freaking special interest aliens, because they came from terrorist nations and they're been sponsored and associated with terrorists. So whenever you hear DHS try to downplay it, know they're lying to you. Let me give you an example of how insane this is. I'm going to look at, I have some numbers written down because I knew we'd talk about it. I want to get exact numbers. And this is from DHS. This is not my configurations. And I want to put this caveat out there that I do not trust DHS numbers, CBP numbers. In fact, just a side note, Center for Immigration Studies, CIS.org, about a month ago, had a FOIA for many, many months, and it came out, and DHS had to admit that they hid the number of people that were coming through CBP One app into the airports. And how many did they hide? They hid over 221,000. 221,000 people that they did not vet and they allowed to fly into America and then just walk through our airports. Okay, 221,000. So if they're lying about that, how much more are they lying about? So back to special interest aliens under the CBP One app. That's the app that they created that goes on your iPhone, if you can believe that. And I am from Uzbekistan, and I can go on an app and apply for asylum, and then they'll approve it. You would think I'm making, sometimes I say this out loud and I pause because it sounds so insane to me. And I'm thinking, people that are listening to me, they must think that I am the biggest liar. But this is what's happening, right? It's Orwellian. So homeland.house.gov came out yesterday and said 278,431 people went through the CBP One app in 2023. I believe that number is grossly low, but let's just go with it. They found out that 95% were approved. 95%. Let me just tell you who came through. 16 Iranians that were approved, 32 Chinese, 229 Afghans, 1,866 people from Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan had 30,000 people arrested and released this year, and almost 20,000 Russians came through CBP One app. I'm not talking about the ones that came across the border and gave up and then were released. I'm just talking from the CBP One app. Preliminary numbers today. So federal fiscal years go from October 1 to September 30th. So we just started FY24. In 3 weeks, We have arrested 94 people from Syria, 55 people from Iran, 2 from Yemen, 4 from Iraq, and 4 from Lebanon that we know about. This is just preliminary numbers. So we have essentially hundreds of thousands of special interest aliens that have come into our country. Let me give you DHS data. Special interest aliens in FY 2022 was 25,000. FY 2023 was 80,000. 80,000. If you go back further and you go to 2021, it goes down to 3,000. You go to 2020, we're in less than 2,000. You have brought in 2 years, that is known, not 80% of the border at any given time, and it's going to be hard for people to understand. Hundreds and hundreds of miles of the 2,000-mile southern border, there's not one single Border Patrol agent patrolling that. Not one. It's completely wide open, okay? So people are just pouring through by the millions annually. So 105,000 special interest aliens came into America and then they were released. Now, let me explain to you how absurd this is. Because people, they go, well, they make the chaos normal, okay? In my 24-year career.
Kind of jumping in, say, just
yes.
Is in your career, if you arrested someone from Iran, for instance, or from Afghanistan, how would you handle that? Would you just say, okay, well, I arrested you now, you can go on, or and maybe that's what you're going to actually explain now, but that's to me.
Yes, I was going to do that. Please interrupt me whenever, because I'll just the illegal immigration and I believe treason within our government to change America is so layered, it's so complex, and it is so wide and deep. It's hard to get it all in under a time. But let me explain to you 80,000 special interest aliens in 1 year. In 24 years in the United States Border Patrol, I was talking to somebody the other day, one of my guys, who were estimating how many people we arrested. I directly or indirectly, as a frontline agent, a supervisor, and then a high-level manager where I had hundreds of people under me, it was estimate low-level 10,000 people, okay? Let's just use 10,000 as a number. I think it's higher than I more had contact with. I can remember less than 5 special interest aliens in my total career. 5. Now, let me explain to you what happens when we get a special interest alien is arrested in the field and brought to the station. Everything in that station comes to a screeching halt because I know I have a high-profile illegal alien in my custody that I believe is known to have terrorist ties. Everything stops. I'm a supervisor, I'm a manager, I'm telling my agent, I want that report in ASAP, and I need it extremely, extremely detailed. I'm telling the supervisor, I need everything you got, pocket trash, everything. I call JTTF, Joint Terrorism Task Force. They come in, it's FBI, it's everybody, Border Patrol, FBI, DEA, everybody comes in, right? They thoroughly debrief this individual, interrogate him. If they find out that individual's a terrorist, they just take my data and my report and they're gone. And I don't know what they do with them. I don't care. It's not part of my job. Okay, done. Let's say they can't make that connection of Mohammed from Sudan we know it's him, but I can't determine he's actually a terrorist. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, JJ. Okay, sounds good. I set him up for deportation, wrap it up nice and neat. I make sure it gets to ICE. I'm already on the phone with ICE. This is, I'm sending you a special interest alien. 10-4, I got it. They get a plane and they fly him back to Sudan. Never in my wildest, craziest life would I ever release that person into America. If I would release that person into America, I would immediately be suspended. They would take my gun and my badge and put me on the rubber gun squad, and then I would be thoroughly interrogated as to why. Why would you do something? Are you connected? Are you compromised? For one, none of those people are ever to be released. Ever. And now we're releasing all of them. 80,000. Can you wrap your brain around 80,000 special interest aliens? I just moved from Rapid City, South Dakota. I went there for 2 years with my wife and my son. That's larger than Rapid City, South Dakota. That's everybody living there plus about 10,000 people. And we just allowed that in 1 year. What I'm telling you is we are in such peril and we are so vulnerable as a nation that 35 months ago, before Joe Biden took office, it was unthinkable that you would ever release a special interest alien. To now, it's commonplace by the hundreds of thousands. And if that doesn't scare you, if that doesn't at least make you ask a simple question, why? Why would our federal government do this to us?
Hey, folks, I've got a quick message for you. So I'm sure you've heard a lot of people, myself included, talking about the importance of buying precious metals, gold and silver. But what's really behind that? Is just a thing of, hey, buy this gold, buy this silver, right? Or is there something deeper that we should be looking at? So I recently came across some figures about house prices. So in 1930, the average family home was approximately $4,000. Fast forward to 2023, the average family home is just over $400,000. So you have to ask yourself, why is that? Is it because things have just gotten more expensive? No, it's actually because the dollar has lost 99% of its value since 1930, right? When people talk about the collapse of the dollar or inflation, this is what it means. Now, let's take a look at gold. So in 1930, if you wanted to purchase your home in gold, it would take approximately 200 gold coins. So 200 gold coins would purchase the average family home in 1930, about $4,000. Now, if you, instead of buying a home with that gold or cash, you set those aside, if you set aside $4,000 in cash in 1930, it would be worth $4,000 today. What can you buy with $4,000? Can you buy a family home? No, you can't even buy a crappy used car. But if you set aside $4,000 worth of gold coins in 1930, which is 200 gold coins, 1 ounce coins, that would be worth approximately $400,000 today. And this is the key lesson about precious metals. It's not about getting rich. It's about putting your money into an asset that protects you against inflation and against the destruction of the currency, which is what happens to all fiat currencies, especially now we're in the end days of the dollar. And so that's why it's important, maybe not all of your money, but a portion of your money, a portion of what you have. I highly recommend putting it into precious metals of gold and silver, because what it's doing is it's protecting you. This is an asset that has stood the test of time, not just stood the test of time since the 1930s. We're talking about the rise and fall of civilizations. Gold was used to buy houses back in ancient Rome. It's still around. It's an asset that will forever have its value. So folks, if you want to do this and you need someone you can trust, there's no person I can recommend more than Dr. Kirk Elliott. He's a very good friend of mine. He's a strong Christian patriot, and he's out to really help people to protect their savings and what you've worked for against the destruction of the dollar, not to mention also protecting it against the dangers of central bank digital currencies. So to learn more about this, go to goldwithseth.com or call 720-605-3900. Again, that's goldwithseth.com or 720-605-3900. Both those places will allow you to set up a quick appointment where you can talk to a wealth advisor that will help get you started on this path. Again, goldwithseth.com, 720-605-3900. It absolutely, it doesn't make sense. The only way it would make sense is if you would say that our federal government is being controlled by our enemy. That they're working on behalf of our enemy. That's the only way it would possibly make sense.
Well, if anything, I'm very honest and I'm very direct, and I don't care. My whole life, I'm a big white guy. I was born in Massachusetts, but grew up in the deep South. My father was a Secret Service agent, moved around, and so I've been called all the vile names, right, in the Border Patrol. Big white guy from everyone I arrest. You're racist. You're this. You're that. And so those names mean nothing to me because I'm none of those things. I'm just a realist. And my true belief And I've been doing this for 24 years and then extensively for 2 years of doing deep dive research for my book and going on interviews because I never want to mischaracterize or make a judgment on something that is not founded, like truly founded and researched in truth. I believe that we have traitors within our own government. Once you accept the fact that our government, the people in our government, want to fundamentally transform America, their words, not mine, and they're doing it through illegal immigration, through the American immigration system. Once you accept that as truth, everything that we talk about makes complete sense. If you do not believe that, and you believe our government at worst is incompetent, this irrational decisions and policy and determinations is so irrational, it will make you go in circles and spin like a top. But the moment you come to the realization that our own government wants to fundamentally transform America, their words, not mine, and you look at their actions, it makes sense. All of this makes complete sense. And that's what I push out to my interviews and I talk to people. And I don't care how it makes me sound. I know history will find me to be on the right side. I truly do.
And so the people that you've witnessed coming across, especially these SIAs, are they women and children? Are they young men? And if they're young men, which I look at the video, anybody can look at the videos you see on even Fox News, they're not a bunch of old women and young children. They look like me and they look like you. Actually, they look like you. They don't look like me. They look like people that could cause serious damage. Have you seen any indicators or signs, whether are you seeing consistent tattoos that might show that they're military? Are you seeing consistent haircuts? Are you seeing behavior that would indicate that these aren't just people coming here to work on a strawberry farm in California?
Right. Well, the first thing is they're all military age adult males, all of them, 18 to 30, somewhere in there. Okay. Very strong. No women, no children, none. All right. Let me give you an example. In May, and just so we have an understanding, the cartels run everything on the border. Nobody willy-nilly crosses the border. They're told, okay, you can cross now after they pay the fee or make the sign. The cartels actually put bracelets on people, so the other cartels know who owns them and then who owes them money, etc. So they run everything. Back at my old station, my guys would call me in April and May, and this is just because this was the epicenter of terrorist nations. Individual terrorist nations were crossing because the cartel deemed this is the place that we want to do it. So at any given time during the day, there was 2,000 people between the fences just living there because the Border Patrol could not have the resources to get all 2,000 in. So they bring 500 in every day and another 500 would systematically cross. They were all single adult military age men from the continent of Africa and Middle East, all of them. My sources were telling me, like I'm sitting here on a computer and I put your hands on this, it's called ident machine. You put your hands on it and it scans your fingerprints and pops up what kind of criminal history you have. And none of them have any criminal history because they've never been in America. Our databases that we vet are just in America. But 50 of them every 24 hours for almost 2 months were hitting on terrorist watch lists. 50. 5 of them every day were confirmed terrorists. 5. The other 45 were just let go. Okay. So when you ask me, are they middle-aged? No, they're just males. They're all military-age males. Look at all the videos. They're indisputable. You just look at them come across. And you asked me about we're starting to see and hear and reports on all the way down in Darien Gap. Michael Yon, who's a great investigative reporter, and Vandersteel. I forget the gentleman's name that runs muckraker.com. He's down there a lot. And they're just giving you eyewitness testimony. And Gordon Chang as well, because he's a Chinese expert, is stating that they are seeing Chinese nationals, single adult males, military age, all coming across with the same haircuts, similar clothes, similar unique IDs, and similar tattoos. Who in America, what subgroup of Americans have the same haircuts, same clothes, IDs, and tattoos? Those are called soldiers. Now let's look at special interest aliens from China, okay? In 2022, we arrested 1,970, I believe, Chinese nationals. This year, we've arrested, in FY 2023, we arrested over 25,000. Okay? This, in the first 3 weeks, not months, the first 3 weeks in FY 24, we're almost at 3,000. Okay? So the CCP is pouring their soldiers into America. Look, you don't have to like me. You don't have to like the way I look or the way I speak or whatever. But this is just data. And if you want to get to the point where you want to attack the messenger, you got to understand, and I say this all the time. I said this last night in an interview on cable TV. I said, if I'm wrong about all this, then explain to me what's going on. We all agree this data is coming from our own government. I don't trust it. They've downplayed it, but just off their numbers is shockingly and damning. So if I'm not right, and I pray to God I'm not actually, but I believe I am. If I'm not right, then tell me what the hell is going on? Why is our government doing this? And if we all agree that this data is right, how do you sit there as an American and think that the outcome, even the best case situation outcome, is going to be pain and suffering? And if you can't see that, you are just ignorant or willfully in denial. It just, really is that simple. But I ask you, you hear what I say. The data is there. Do you dispute the fact that this could happen to America? We just saw it in Israel. It's our ally. We just saw the parades throughout the major cities in America, all the way down to the deep south in Texas. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Palestinian supporters waving their flags and their jihad flags and their terrorist flags. Not in Lebanon, not in Gaza, in Austin, Texas, in Washington, D.C., New York. So when you tell me, well, I don't know, that just sounds conspiratorial, I don't know what to tell you. This is just what I know from experience, from what my agents are telling me in the field, and what rational, intelligent adult final solutions would be. I don't see any other solution. I don't see another outcome except pain and destruction. I don't.
Hey, folks, I have a quick message for you. Thank you so much for watching, listening to this interview. I have one small request. If you're enjoying what you're listening to, could you please share this interview with one person, just one person? Because of censorship and shadow banning, it's so hard to get this content out to more people. And the only way we can really do it is when you help by sharing it. So if you like what you're listening to, hit pause, share it with one person. It helps so much. Thank you so much. And so looking at the outcome of this, what you've done is you've painted this very disturbing picture of soldiers, terrorists coming across our borders. I would imagine that these are people that are highly trained. They're probably highly trained in operations and small teams that disrupt, whether it's power grid, whether it's transportation, airports, whatever it is. So do you think, as we're heading into 2024, which regardless of what your political ideals are, nowadays, election years are the years that the entire country descends into madness because it opens up all kinds of possibilities for whatever the outcomes of that election are, without getting into the details of that. So as we're entering into 2024, do you think that these individuals will be activated in some way? What is the likelihood of that happening? And what do you think that they'll do? What will it look like?
I don't know. Okay. I'm not an expert on domestic terror, domestic meaning they're already here, terrorism. I just know what the precursors are, and that they're already here. I just read an article today where Donald Trump and I'll be very honest, I'm a big Donald Trump guy because he's the first president that actually was successful on the border. And he treated us with respect. However, that being said, everyone is not parroting what I'm saying, but they're saying what I'm saying, that they're here. Okay? They're here. My co-host on Mostly Peaceful is Brian O'Shea, former intelligence analyst, investigative journalist, very, very smart. I'm learning about him because we just started this podcast, and I'm learning about him, and I'm shocked at what he can discover through his systems within minutes. And he and I had this discussion actually last night, and he says, yes, I think that there will be some kind of incident that will cause the government to just shut down and say, we can't have elections. Look, we have people bombing stuff all over. We can't have elections. What about the poor people that are going to go to the ballot box? You can't. Oh, we're going to have all mail-in ballots now, right? One thing that Brian said that made sense to me, because I was talking to him on one of our podcasts, and I said, do you understand, Brian, that we have battalions of foreign national soldiers and terrorists in America? And he said, yes, I do know that, but it will not be conventional. Like, we're going to activate 3,000 people and they're going to go around shooting, killing. He goes, it won't happen like that. And what he said made complete sense. And this is what he said. He says, you're going to have very small units. You're going to have a leader and about 10 guys, 11 guys, and they're going to be walled off. They're going to know, here's your target A, and you're going to do it on this day. Do your surveillance, do everything. That's your target. And Brian made a great point. He said, I said, okay, well, give me an example of a target. He said, what if those 12 guys went into, say, JFK Airport at 11 o'clock in the morning with their machine guns, their M4s, AKs, and they just annihilated everybody? And then they wouldn't blow themselves up because they're an army. Then they retreat and they go back into hiding. What would that do to America? Do you think it would bring America to a screeching halt and bring us to our knees? Absolutely. Absolutely. So when I have former President Trump, I have DHS putting out on San Diego sector, put out a terror warning of Hezbollah, Hamas, Palestinian, Islamic jihadists are crossing into America. That's what they said. Be aware, they're coming. I have my own government. I have the individual that wants to change the government. Everyone's saying the same thing. And here I am, and I've been saying this for years, and now it's coming to fruition. You can't allow the enemy inside America. I'm not talking about 8 terrorists. I'm talking about 80,000 in 1 year. Special interest aliens with some tie to terrorism have been allowed into our country. The insanity goes beyond even your ability to rationally think that right after Israel, I actually sat and did this. Okay, it's 10 in the morning on Sunday. Let me see how long it is before these grotesque anti-American politicians begin the drumbeat of Palestinian refugees. And within 8 hours, we want 1 million Palestinian refugees in America. But I pull myself back and I have to say, don't get emotional. Remember, they are trying to destroy America. It makes sense. And when that is in your backdrop, that these people hate America and they want to change America, it makes sense. And I come back to you with the same rhetorical question. Through all their actions, open borders, unfettered avenues to come in, the demand for 1 million Palestinians to come into America, and on and on and on. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me how this helps America. Explain to me how this benefits America, the sovereignty of America, America as a whole, makes us more safe, makes us more successful economically. Explain it to me. And nobody can. And I'm asking very simple, basic questions that people can't even answer, the simple, basic questions of why, how does this make America good? How does it make us great? No one can answer the question, because the answer is it does not. It harms us. It puts us in the crosshairs. You have hundreds of thousands of special interest aliens. You have tens of thousands of terrorists. You and I haven't even discussed the millions of criminal aliens in our nation. I do a whole chapter in my book, Invaded, where I just dive into the data, and I go all the way down to like a minuscule percentage, and I can prove that there are millions of illegal aliens that have been in and out of our jails and still live in America and still rape and pillage our communities in America. And our government does nothing. Does nothing. Let me just give you an incredible statistic that is shocking. Since when Joe Biden took office till now, and it's even increased then, but back 30 months ago, there was 4.8 million people that had already gone through the immigration process, saw the immigration judge, had appeal after appeal after appeal, and the immigration judge says you're still deported. You are deportable and you are to be removed on this date. 4.8 million have absconded. 4.8 million people living in America have been ordered deported and will refuse to leave, and we do nothing about it. Is this America? I'm a strong believer in our founding fathers, the greatness of America, because it provides freedom and opportunity. But freedom and opportunity is only available with the foundation of law and order. If you do not have law and order, you will have chaos, and chaos does not lead to success and prosperity. We are a lawless nation. We have people say 2 tiers of justice. I can even argue that that's wrong. But dear God, man, when you look at the enormity of what's happening, let me give you another statistic that is shocking. Over 50 million people living in America are foreign nationals. So we have a 1 in 7, about a 1 in 6.75. Of every 6.75 people, one of them is not from America, not born here. We have, at best, minimum, the most conservative number, about 35 to 40 million illegal aliens in our country. So a 1 in 8, a 1 in 9 are illegal. And then I ask this rhetorical question, because we know the answer. Look at Rome, Greece, Alexander the Great's empire, the Ottoman, all the empires. Name one that had that demographic population percent and succeeded and remained the same, or did not just implode and die. You can't name one. You can't.
Well, I know
So why do you think America's better?
it was one of the main
How do you
reasons
think?
that Rome fell.
Yes.
Was their immigration, open borders, and then once, and the point that, through my own study of Rome and the fall of Rome, is that, yeah, when everything is peaceful, those different tribes and people that they fit in, but when everything is not peaceful, they revert to a very tribalistic view to protect their own and to fight whoever's not their own tribe. One other a question that I have with this is, so I'm piecing together the storyline of, Biden gets in, completely opens the border, knowingly letting terrorists and people from terrorist countries just into the country, like in tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands, of individuals. And so if there was going to be some sort of, say, not going to say a D-Day, but something like that, where they get the order, they've all got their cell
Activation
phones,
date.
some sort of activation, and they start to bring mass chaos in America, they would need supplies, whether it's uniforms or not, but they would need weapons, ammunition, etc. So did you see any indication of that coming across the border as well? Did you see that that it's not just the drugs? Were there, weapons caches coming across that are potentially being hidden in America for that activation day, when everyone goes to their own warehouse, they open up and they unbox their crates, and they've all got everything they need to cause mass chaos?
I have not seen that. Doesn't mean it's not happening. Now you mentioned drugs. So we have terrorists in our nation. The ability to get what they need from a financial perspective is that's that's a no-brainer. You and I have been talking for almost an hour now. We haven't even discussed drugs and the money, the trillions, not billion, $1 trillion business is. So money and cash and the ability to purchase things, weapons, uniforms, vests, whatever it is, that's not an issue for them.
All right, folks, I've got a quick message for you. I have one simple question. If today you could no longer go purchase more food for your family with the food stores that you have in your home, how long would you be able to feed your family? Would it be a week, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, a year? This is a really important question, folks, that we have to be very realistic about because the elites are proactively trying to put us into a state of food crisis and a state of famine. I'm sure you've seen all of the different food processing plants and farms that are blowing up. You've got cattle dying by the tens of thousands. They're proactively trying to collapse our food system because they know if they can control our food, they can control us. And so one of the best ways to be outside of their control is to be able to have our own stores of food and to be able to produce our own food. So there's really two things I would recommend. One is having heirloom seeds that you can grow your own food with, making sure that they're non-GMO heirloom seeds, that way you can harvest your seeds this year, use them next year. You can use these seeds for generations. Literally, that's how it will work. The other thing, though, is this high quality storable food. This is food that's sitting somewhere. It's hidden in your basement, buried in your backyard, whatever it is. So that way, if there is a crisis, if there is an emergency, you might have 3 months set aside to get through that time period. And so for this, I would highly recommend a company called Heaven's Harvest. This is an amazing Christian-owned patriot company. And what they're doing is they're making high quality storable food. Again, a lot of the food companies, they say these food buckets, they're all about maximizing calories per dollar. They're filling the buckets with a bunch of filler and junk like sweet beverages, etc. But Heaven's Harvest, they focus on very high quality food that will last up to 25 years on the shelf. They also sell heirloom seeds. So you can buy all of your seeds, you can buy all of your storable food. And look, folks, personally, I would recommend having at least 3 months per person in your household, if not 6 months or even a year. Again, depends on your budget, but I would definitely make sure you have some seeds because those seeds could be worth their weight in gold, if not more in the future. So to go ahead and do this right now, go open up a new tab and go to heavensharvest.com. And if you use the promo code Seth, that's SETH, promo code Seth, you'll save 15% off of your entire order. So again, folks, the time is running out and you'd rather be 3 months or 1 year early than 1 day late. Again, heavensharvest.com and use promo code Seth to save 15% today.
You got to understand that we're not in a war. The war that we'll be in, Douglas McGregor said this on Tucker Carlson's interview, and I find him to be very enlightening and incredibly articulate from his experience and knowledge. And he said something that stuck with me yesterday, and I would like to touch on what you just said too, because it's very poignant. He says, when we go to war, and we will go to war, if you don't think we're going to war, you are a fool. We are on the precipice of World War III. You can see everything aligning. This is a guy that's been there and done it. He says, we will fight at least on 2 fronts, one at home and one abroad. And what he was saying is just what you said. They will need support. They will need physical, emotional support. They will need the people that align with them. So I bring in tens of thousands. I see the videos of the parades. I look at those faces. I know who, just from my own, I could spot 100 yards away if a guy's illegal or if he is a card holder. I could just sense it from all my years. I'm looking at these videos and I'm seeing people that I'm like, that guy just got here. That guy's only been here for a couple of months. And they're waving their Palestinian flag. So when we go to war, and I wrote this on my Substack the other day, when we go to war, and if you do not think that we're on the precipice of war, you're just don't want to get into reality. Once we go to war in the Middle East with Iran, China, Russia, that coalition, and we're fighting their brothers and sisters, do you think they're going to take up arms with us to fight their people? or they're going to take up arms and fight us. And before you say, well, there's not that many. Oh, really? I just saw minimum 1 million marching through our big cities. And they believe in their cause. We are the great Satan. And we allowed them to come into our great Satan nation. And what do you think they're going to do to us? So when you mentioned that just rung a bell with Mr. McGregor and what you're saying. And I think I look at these parades and I think, well, at the baseline, what I'm describing is reality. It's happening. And when you begin to look at the totality of it, again, put all the pieces together, connect the dots, then tell me what probability of a bad outcome is it? There is no other outcome. Times have changed. Listen, when we went to DHS from Immigration and Naturalization Service, the INS, which was grotesquely horrible, we went to DHS. Our number one mission was preventing terrorists and terrorist actions in America, right? And we all scoffed at that. The Border Patrol agents were like, dude, just stop it. We don't even see these people. The real problem is millions of people coming in our nation, destroying our social services, our schools, everything, crime, blah, blah, blah. Strangely enough, since Biden's taken office, as bad, we haven't even talked about the 7 million people they let in to our nation that has destroyed New York, Chicago, DC, Austin, Phoenix, LA, I go on forever. They're all state of emergencies, right? Because they have too many illegal aliens. But truly, our greatest threat right now is being attacked from within. Absolutely. I 100% agree to that. I pray to God that I hope I die. When I die, nothing happens. I have a son. I got a 12-year-old son. You think I want my son living in this screwed up, insane world where our government hates us and does this? And I know, listen, I know how I sound. I do. I understand. I used to listen to guys like this 10 years ago, and I would think that guy is absolutely off his rocker. But we didn't have the data that we had today. Today, I'm looking at a completely different immigration system, a completely different people that are running it. And I'm saying out loud, yes, absolutely 100% this could happen, and it probably will. And it doesn't make me feel good. I take no joy in it. I mean, I'm looking at Tom Homan, former ICE director, incredible patriot. He wrote an article today in Breitbart where he was detailing the people, I call them the lieutenants of Mayorkas that are in the DHS. They're full on anti-ICE, defund the Border Patrol. They're running the DHS. They're supposed to be my backup. They're supposed to give me resources. They just turned over a tracking system. It's a pilot program. I'm sorry I don't have the acronym. It's like CPBA or something. I apologize. I should have had it written down. They turned over this pilot program, and it's a tracking mechanism, and they gave this hundreds of millions of dollars business to an NGO that wants to defund ICE. You can't make this up. But that's just one person, one entity in the DHS. And I wrote in my book, I wrote a couple of people, and I wrote on Substack detailing several people that are in DHS that are full on. That's not. I'm not like, yeah, they hate the Border Patrol. No, I'm reading their posts on Twitter, and I'm reading their articles. Yes, article, I want to defund the Border Patrol and ICE. They're racist and they're Nazis. Those are the people that are now overseeing the Border Patrol. The same people that hated us and called us Nazis and racists. How do you think that is going? What outcome do you think is going to happen when all this falls out and the product comes out? Do you think you're going to have a Border Patrol that's gung-ho and ready to do the job? Or are you going to have Border Patrol agents and ICE agents that are resentful, they feel horrible, that they're betraying the oath? And I'll give you a perfect example of the manifestation of what they've done to Border Patrol. We have immense suicide rate in the United States Border Patrol. That has a lot to do with feeling as if you are committing crimes and you betrayed your oath. I don't know what oaths people take in quote the civilian world. Okay, I grew up with a father who was like a hero to me, guarded all the presidents, was highly successful Secret Service agent, and he was a rock. So when I got up there and my dad gave me my badge when I graduated, I swore an oath. That meant something to me. That just means something. It meant a great deal to me that you are giving me a gun and a badge, and you're telling me that I can take people's freedoms from them and put them in jail and deport them. That's a big deal. And I have to do that by knowing the law and enforcing the law to protect America and keep America safe. You may say, well, that's so hokey and that's not hokey. How do you think America survives? How do you think America isn't destroyed by the criminal savages in America? Do you think that there's one police officer per every 5 citizens? No. Federal, state, and local police officers total about 660,000. There's 330 million people in America. How do we keep the savages at bay are men like me that swore an oath that said, okay, there's my badge. It means something. So now you take that badge, you tarnish it, you rip it off my chest, and you tell me you're going to do everything that you know is illegal. And then you wonder, I wonder why those men and women are killing themselves in the Border Patrol or police for that matter. I wonder why, right? So I do take this personal. I try to remove myself from the personal aspect to just talk data and numbers, but there's times where it's very personal. I've seen this man, Mayorkas, the Secretary of DHS, dismantle everything that me and my buddies did. Men that died on the border, men that had their heads caved in by rocks. I got broken bones in my body from falling off cliffs and fighting these people. And now you undid it all illegally and nobody says a word about it. And now I see the real data starts coming out. We're starting to see the special interest aliens and the terrorism. There is no outcome that is good. I will just say that. And I pray to God that nothing happens to my family. That's it. I know how selfish that sounds, but that's what I want. But I come on to shows like this and I speak the truth, and I know that I'm vulnerable because people are going to say things to me, and I see it all the time. But I have more people than not say, you know what, man? I'm looking at all the data that you put out there, and yes, I fact checked you, and you're right. And that's what I put in my book. And I say every time I'm interviewed, I want you to fact check me. I want you to take every single word that I said and I want you to scrutinize it. Because what you're going to find out is, dear God, that guy was speaking the truth. And I have all footnotes in my book. I have everything. You want to fact check me? Just go ahead. I encourage it because it will just strengthen my resolve and it will give you knowledge that you need.
And that knowledge is important because I think that it's the knowledge of this information, which is why I want to have guests like you on for these discussions, that becomes power to do something. And if you look at what happened with Israel, which you could arguably say that that was a practice run for what could happen here in America. When you look at terrorist cells coming across the border and murdering innocent civilians, I'm a big person talking about prepping. It's something that is a big part of my life, and not just prepping, but also learning how to grow food, learning how to raise chickens, learning how to use a firearm, etc. Even setting up plans for the family. Okay, here's the safe room. Here's where the food's stored. So those things don't happen, or even if these events say do happen on our American soil, that I can be one of the families that is able to defend my family. And so,
Yes.
for people that are watching this, and I see there's a lot of folks that maybe they know what's happening, but their spouse doesn't, and they want to be buying food and learning how to use a gun, but there's differences. What would you tell people about the importance of being prepared and knowing how to take care of your family if we see these terror cells activated, which I unfortunately have to agree with you that it looks like a very high probability of that. What would you tell folks in order to about the importance of being prepared?
I think it's, yeah, I think you can't be prepared for everything, but I believe there are life-saving discussions. Like if someone comes into your house and in the middle of the night, I told my son and my wife, I'll take care of this. You got to go into the safe room, lock it down. Here's the safe password that you know it's me. If they say they're police, don't open up. Just sit there with your weapon. And if anyone comes through, you blast them. And it's hard to have that discussion with my 12-year-old son, but I have to. I have to have this discussion with my son. Police officer comes to the door. Hey, I want to come in. No, sir. With all due respect, no, sir, unless you have a warrant, right? Sad, but I have to have this discussion. What I would say to you or anyone that had a spouse or somebody that's bucking this and saying, this is insane that we're ever having this discussion, I would just sit them down and say, can you please watch this video from the Hamas GoPro where they just walked into houses, random houses in Israel, one of the most fortified nations on planet Earth, got inside and just started indiscriminately raping, pillaging, and murdering people, shooting them point blank in the head. And then I would say, what do you have to lose to be prepared? I was looking at some of your old videos, and I believe I can't remember which one it was, and you were joking about how you went to Costco and bought like hundreds of pounds of rice, right? What's the worst thing? Now you've got a year or 2 years supply of rice so you can feed your family. That's the worst thing that happens. And you save some money because now the rice is double, triple of what happened, right? So there is no downside to being prepared. There is incredible downside to not being prepared, to be living in la la land. We call it in law enforcement code white, where you just kind of, everything's great. I'm going to go get my Frappuccino and everything. But you can't be in code red where you're like high alert, ready to kill somebody. But you've got to be somewhere in between where you're kind of looking around going, this doesn't make sense. God put in some of us more than others, but God instinctively instilled in our minds and our souls the ability to hear and see truth. And he also gave us the ability to, if you quiet yourself, you can hear the right thing to do. When you're looking at the world, and I think that we all can agree, left, right, center, something's not right. Something is off kilter. We all feel it. Maybe we can't articulate it all, or we agree to what it is, but we all feel as if something's not right. There's a reason why you feel that way. Don't dismiss it. There's a reason why you don't trust your government. I mean, do we go back? Let's just go back 20, 25 years. Look at the major things the government has done that were 180, they were completely wrong, and utterly changed our lives for the worse. For the worse. So I find you to be sophomoric if you continue to believe these people and continue to trust where they've already damaged you severely. I mean, look at the economy today. Am I supposed to believe that we're really not in a recession with almost 8% interest rates for homes? Credit cards are going up to 30%. Everyone's losing all of their 401ks by the trillions of dollars have been lost. Everything is exponentially 2, 3, 4 times the cost. I'm supposed to believe that a man that ran for president 2 or 3 times and couldn't even get like 3% of the vote now got 81 million votes by living in his basement, where the person that was going against him was having rallies with 80,000 people with another 30,000 waiting to get in. That guy lost to the guy that couldn't get 6 people in a circle. Am I supposed to believe that Secretary of Homeland Security Mayorkas, that has taken all of the policies of DHS and ripped them to shreds and made fraudulent asylum, fraudulent parole, catch and release, that guy's not the enemy? That guy's trying to do something good for America? I could go down here. I could spend all day with you going over, look what happened in Minnesota. Look what happened in Texas. Look what happened of murders and rapes. Oh, they're all illegal aliens. Oh, they just came in the last 2 or 3 years. Oh, they're all illegal aliens. Yeah. I could go on for days, literally days. You and I could just do a marathon of crimes committed by illegal aliens against Americans, heinous crimes. This is not a fun topic. And you and I think of this. You and I have been speaking over an hour. And we talked about truly SIAs and terrorists. Look what we have not haven't even mentioned. Not even one word of it. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying, look at the enormity of it. You and I have not even talked about the true number of illegal aliens allowed in our country. You and I barely touched on the amount of narcotics that are destroying America, that are pouring in from the southern border. You and I have not even discussed the sex trafficking of children in America by the hundreds of thousands. We haven't even talked about the crime. We just did anecdotes. Look at how big this thing is that is destroying America, called illegal immigration. It's ravaging America. There are pictures and videos. I mean, we can go, if you want to talk about child sex trafficking, you want to talk about something that is horrific, our federal government is facilitating this. They know it's happening. Do you know that people are coming, when you come into America illegally, you fly into South America or Central America, and then you make this, I call it the trauma gauntlet. You traverse all those countries to get to America. The amount of women, the percentage of women and children being raped and sexually assaulted. Do you know that there is a hard, like a battle between all of the parties, left, right, middle, everybody, on the percentage? Not that it's happening, but the percentage. And you know what the fight is about? Is it 60% or is it 80%? Do you understand what I'm just saying? Millions of women and children are coming up the border. And our argument is 60% of them are being raped and sexually assaulted. No, you're wrong. It's 80%. That's the argument. Not how do we stop? It's 6%. If it was 6%, I would be like, oh my God, 6% of a million people are being raped. What? No. 60%, 80%. Let me give you one example. Just one that goes on forever. Tom Homan, I wrote about it in my book. Tom Homan goes and has to testify in Congress. And he is passionate like me because he sees it. I've seen this. It's not like I'm just making these stories up. I lived it for 24 years. I know it's happening. And Tom Homan's in front of Congress and he says, let me give you an example, just one, of what this looks like in reality when I'm talking about it. So he goes, I'm down there in Texas. I go in from a sheriff. A sheriff brings me in and we go to the autopsy. I'm talking to the coroner and we're talking about two Nigerian, a mom and a dad, and their 20-month-old little girl that just drowned in the Rio Grande as they tried to cross and got caught in the currents. He says, the coroner pulls me aside and says, listen, sir, she died from drowning. However, she has been raped in every orifice of her body by the cartels. And Tom Homan says exactly what I said, because everyone was like, and he says, let me make sure that you understand what I'm saying. This isn't the exception. This is happening right now as you and I speak. It happens all day, every day, all night, every night. And you politicians, are allowing this to happen. And nothing's done. It's facilitated more. We have The Sound of Freedom, that incredible movie. I lived it. Those scenes of Calexico, California, and San Isidro, I worked those areas. I know exactly what the hell they're depicting on those videos. As powerful as that is, you had politicians saying, no, that's a lie, that doesn't happen. You're part of the problem. You're either part of the pedophile ring, or you like that type of lifestyle, or you're trying to retain your power and wealth somehow that you're getting. This is happening, people. We haven't even discussed this. Hundreds of thousands of kids in U.S. soil are being raped. They're being labor trafficked. Do you know that people don't even know this? In the latest Biden spending bill, $106 billion, he tied border security to the funding of Ukraine and Israel war, which is abomination. So he gave 14 billion, 106 billion, but only 14 billion to America. Everything else went to foreign nations, okay? 14 billion is supposed to go to border security. No, it's not. 90% of the 14 billion over 90% goes to build facilities in South America and Central America to facilitate the flow of illegal aliens. Do you know that where 100 million of that dollar went to, or is going to? It's going to go to, think of this, how damning this is. $100 million is going to be given to the Department of Labor. And why? Because the Department of Labor has seen a 44% increase in the last 10 months of children working in industrial places of employment. Children. We're finding 12-year-olds, my son, his age, working in meatpacking plants in Nebraska. If it's not okay for my son to not be raped, if it's not okay for my son to not work on midnight shift in a meatpacking plant instead of eating Cheerios in the morning, going to school with his friends and playing computer games at night, why is it okay for Americans to turn a blind eye when Jose from Guatemala, 12 years old, is being anally raped and passed around to 5 or 6 pedophiles a night, and then or forced to go work in Kellogg's packing my son's Cheerios at 2 o'clock in the morning? Can anybody explain how this has happened to America? And I will make it even more damning accusation. I believe America is morally, we're past the crossroads. I believe that we are morally bankrupt as a nation because the sound of freedom comes out. Everyone talks about it. People are testifying in Congress, not just Tom Homan, but people inside, whistleblowers from HHS, from Office of Refugee Resettlement, that are claiming that children are being abused and we're being released to people they don't even know. So this is common knowledge. But Americans do nothing. They say nothing. Our representatives do nothing. So in fact, just by legality, you are complicit, America. You are complicit in all of this destruction of precious human lives. And something that you and I, maybe I should have started out with, is to make that distinction, because the rhinos and the left love to conflate legal immigration with illegal immigration. I'm talking about the illegal immigration into our nation. I'm not talking about legal immigration. I think legal immigration is amazing. I believe, and I have seen and witnessed and talked to thousands of people that have naturalized, become citizens. Some of them are better patriots than the above average American. It's like I'm Catholic. So people that convert to Catholicism, go through the teachings and learn, they are more times better Catholics than I am because they understand the faith better because they learned as adults. Same thing with people naturalized. They have been in the cesspool third world countries being brutalized. They come to America and they feel safe and they feel proud. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the illegal immigration that's in our country that do not have allegiance to America or Americans. And I'm sorry if I come off very passionate about this. It is, I have become desensitized to everything. I've seen so much degradation, human degradation in 24 years that it doesn't bother me. The raping, the women being raped and murders, and as horrific as that is, and I know that says a great deal about me, I'm very aware of that. But the mutilation and the destruction of young kids, I just can't tolerate it. And then when you pile on that our government facilitates it and allows it to happen, if it doesn't infuriate you as a human being, I don't know what I can tell you to motivate you to make a call to a congressman or write a letter or do whatever, or just speak to your neighbor about it so everybody comes educated. I don't know what to tell you. And this is happening as you and I are speaking. This is happening. One of the things they say why child sex trafficking is so lucrative is when I push over heroin or cocaine and I sell it to average Joe American because it's not being consumed just by the ghettos, it's consumed by middle America. So I take that snort of cocaine or I shoot that heroin in my arm or I cook that cocaine up. It's a one-time hit, it's gone. Not with a kid. I could pass that kid around 5-10 times a night. Every night. All day. Every day. And we do nothing. I look at my beautiful son and I think, I would go to the ends of the earth to find that kid. Then I would, God save my soul, I would kill everybody that I got my hands on. But I feel an obligation, if I feel that passionate about my son, someone else has a son or a daughter that's being sexually trafficked in America. And no one's saying anything. But that kid's life is just as important as my son's life. And we say nothing. How is that? Why is that? And I talk to people of influence and power, and I ask them that. Why? Tell me, why do we allow this in America? The greatest nation on planet Earth that is now in moral decay. And no one can give me an answer. It's frustrating. And I'm telling you, the things that I'm telling you are true. They're happening. Why would I waste my time to come on a podcast and lie? What would I gain? What do I gain from this? To sell a few books, 4 me books? And that'd be great if it skyrockets and I make some money. But who really cares? This is what's happening to America. Is you're seeing the fundamental transformation of America, and there's casualties in that fundamental transformation. And the powers to be do not care. You are just a pawn in this giant board game, and they've got to get to the end of that game to win. And if you get brutalized, your kids get kidnapped and raped. If I have to use people to get to that end, well, that's part of the game. And the ends justify the means. It does.
It's I feel like I'm just listening to my own self in a lot of this, because this is the world that I live in too, is just looking at this evil and just wrapping my head around how did we even get here. And as much as I want to go back to the life of ignorance is bliss, I can't. I've seen it, and I know that the audience, the people that are watching shows like mine, they're in the same place. They would rather know the reality of what's happening than live in this little bubble that's really safe until it gets popped one day and everything is over. So JJ, I feel like that we could do about 30 more shows together, which I do want to have you back on. But before we sign off, I do want to just bring your book up. Invaded: The Intentional Destruction of the American Immigration System, which just came out this past summer. You can be found wherever you can buy books. I would highly recommend folks get the book, read about it, follow you on Twitter, follow you, like I pulled up before, on Daily Clout. You've now joined their team as one of the commentators there, and you have these fantastic long form discussions with Brian O'Shea, who's a good friend of mine and someone who's come on the podcast before. So JJ, I just want to thank you again for coming on the show. Thank you for bringing this information out. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I truly believe that what's happening with our southern border and the people coming across represent the greatest threat to us here on American soil. And I thank you for doing the work that you're doing to help more Americans see that. And I hope that folks that have gotten this far in the interview, when they finish, share this video, share this podcast, because more Americans need to understand that America is not what we thought it was before, that we are living at a time where, like, that GoPro footage that people, you mentioned that happened over in Israel, that could be American soil 6 months from here. And I'm not being a fearmonger. I'm trying to be a realist. That could absolutely be in neighborhoods in suburban America across the country at the flip of a switch.
Agree with. Thank you very much for giving me the time to speak and lay out the facts as they truly are. So I appreciate that opportunity. Thank you.
Absolutely, man.